Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. In this verse, the words Bhagavan, adi-purusah are significant. Bhagavan, adi-purusah is Lord Krsna. Govindam, adi-purusam, aham, bhajami. Lord Krsna is the original person. In Bhagavad-gita, he is also addressed by Arjuna as Purusham Adyam, the original person. And he is called Bhagavan. In this verse, however, we see that Lord Brahma is described as Bhagavan adi-purusah. The reason he is called Bhagavan is that he fully represents the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is the firstborn creature in this universe. Lord Brahma could understand that Maharaja Agnidhra desire because he was as powerful as Lord Visnu. As Lord Visnu, situated as Paramatma, can understand the desire of the living entity, so Lord Brahma can also understand the living entity's desire for Vishnu, as a via medium informs him. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, tene hrda adi-kavaye, Lord Vishnu informs Lord Brahma of everything from within his heart. Because Maharaja Agnidhra specifically worshipped Lord Brahma was pleased, and he sent Purvacitti, the Apsara, to satisfy him. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 2, entitled The Activities of Maharaja Agnidhra. Text number 3. King Priyavrat, we have learned from previous chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, was living on mountain with his Gurudev Narada Muni, exclusively dedicating his life for the purpose of spiritual enlightenment on the path of bhakti. But when he was instructed by his father, Swayambhuva Manu, grandfather, Lord Brahma, and with blessings of Guru Maharaj, Narada Muni, he accepted Grihastha Ashram in order to perform the role of the king of the world. And he performed his duty with great care and attention, even though it was nothing but an austerity for him. And he had to take so much risk, because dealing in politics, having beautiful wife, children, there is so much danger of becoming contaminated, falling down to sense gratification. Very great risk. But really, for the sake of the service of the Lord, you may say for the sake of preaching. Because when there is a Krishna conscious king, yad yaracharati srestas tattar evedarochana sayat pramanam kurute lokas tadanubhati. When there's a good leader, common people follow. That is the nature of human society. We find generally in any situation where there is a good leader, the people follow the path of their leader. So when the king is a surrendered, pure-hearted, compassionate devotee of the Lord, naturally he will make his laws accordingly. He will make policies accordingly. He will emphasize in every election. There's always debates over what different candidates are emphasizing as their priority in this election campaign. It might be defense, or it might be economy, or it might be pro or anti-abortion, or it may be various other international affairs. So according to a person's consciousness and also according to the political climate, people make priorities of what they are going to accomplish when they are president or prime minister or governor. Well, Priyavrat Maharaj, the reason why he was asked to be king is because they knew Brahma, Swayambhuva Manu, and Narada and Rishi understood that he would make the first and foremost of all priorities of his ruling regime that people become Krishna conscious. Guru na sasyat svajini na sasyat pita na sasyat janani na sasyat. According to Rishabdev, one has no right to be a guru, a king, a parent, a teacher, unless one will really strive with all earnesty and honesty to train their dependents or subordinates in such a way that they will never ever have to take birth again in this material world. Because that, in fact, is the purpose of human life. Economic arrangements are only so good as they facilitate the purpose of life. If they distract us from the very purpose of life, then that is a great misfortune. Human life is meant for self-realization. Nayam deho deha bhajamdaloke kastan kaman arhadipit pujamte. Because sense gratification and all the ornamentation that we may create around it in the form of wealth, prestige, technology, architecture, landscaping, it is all essentially just various ways that the human mind uses its developed state to just better enjoy sense gratification. But they really don't. That is the problem. I remember one year when Prabhupada came to New Vrindavan, in his introductory address, everyone greeted him very nicely. I think this was 1976. And he sat down in his Vyasa-san after coming from Pittsburgh Airport. Devotees were so eager to hear from him. It was about 2 years that the devotees in the community had not seen him. He would usually come every other year. To important temples, he would come every other year. His headquarters, his various headquarter temples, he would go every year. Sometimes more. The very important temples, every other year. The not so important temples, maybe one time. So he sat in his Vyasa-san and he began to explain how when he was coming from Pittsburgh, there was so much road construction. You know about that in India. Road destruction, road construction. And when there's road construction, they have to be digging up and breaking the road and building new roads, and then there's detours and you have to go, all these diversions. And there were signs that the government put, temporary inconvenience for permanent convenience. Prabhupada very analytically took note of this. Most people would just read it. Yes, temporary inconvenience for permanent convenience. Prabhupada said this is their illusion. So when is there a time in this material world where there is permanent convenience? All there is temporary inconvenience. Sometimes there's some temporary convenience, but along with it are so many temporary conveniences. There's nothing permanent in this world. Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. It's an inconvenient place because everything is temporary. And then he began to explain how modern society is thinking that progress means economic, scientific, technological advancement. But he said that is not at all progress. Real progress is the progress of our consciousness. From animalistic consciousness to human consciousness. Real progress is in human beings' morality, ethics, and ability to realize God. And then he began to explain that men are, he said, dogs. Dogs are running on 4 legs. And man is running on 4 wheels. But the consciousness is the same. Simply running from one place to another to somehow or other get sense gratification. So what is the improvement? He said, the dog is sleeping on the floor. And the man is sleeping on the road. He said, the dog is sleeping on the roadside, on the ground. And man has a very nice apartment, flat, and a very, very comfortable, soft bed. But what is the quality of consciousness? It is the same. Simply trying to enjoy sleep. And he said the hogs and dogs are eating stool. And man is eating so many delicacies, so many various preparations. But what is the consciousness? To enjoy eating. And the dog is defending with his teeth and with his claws. And man is defending with nuclear weapons. Is that advancement? The basic consciousness is the same. They're in the bodily concept. They're trying to protect their body, which is the facility for their sense gratification. So eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Human society has made it very, very ornamental, very sophisticated. But there's no progress whatsoever. It's not that people are happier in the 21st century than they were 1,000 years ago. Yes. They may not have had flushing toilets. They may have had to go out into the field. Yes. But really, are they happier now? There was no such cities with all traffic jams and everything else and working like an ass foaming at the mouth just so you'd have your flushing toilet. People, simple living, high thinking. There's no problem going in the field. Now we have our microwave ovens. It makes life so easy. Yes. In the earlier days, even in America, you'd have to get some wood and start a fire and cook. Are people happier now? Depression, suicide, drug addiction, alcoholism, frustration, violence. They're growing and growing and growing. Because human beings are frustrated. So human life without the pursuit of self-realization is simply a sophisticated form of animal life. So Priyavrat Maharaj, he was a self-realized soul. He was a very advanced devotee. He was very obedient to his guru and very, very faithful to the word of God. Therefore, when Priyavrat Maharaj was made king, his first and foremost of all priority was to protect his citizens and to create an environment in which they could all happily engage in devotional service according to their means. And all the great kings were like that. Bhagavad-gita describes, just like Maharaja Janak, he was an example of someone who was a king of the whole Mithila district. But he was such a pure devotee. He was like the father of all of his citizens. Even the insignificant birds and insects, he treated them all with great respect and considered that it was his responsibility on behalf of God to take care of every living entity that is within the boundaries of his kingdom. He never felt himself independent. He was duty-bound to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Every living being, even the trees, they are all people who have been entrusted under my care by the Lord. And I am supposed to be the representative of the Lord. Actually, in proper consciousness, any type of leadership we take, we should feel that in taking this leadership position, I'm not independent. I'm supposed to represent the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Krishna consciousness, we're representing the Supreme Lord through Parampara in whatever we do. And that is a fact. If you have anyone under your direction, whether you are a parent with children, or whether you are pujari with other pujaris working under you, or cook with somebody working under you, or whether you're in charge of the cleaning, or garland making, anytime we take any role where we have some authority over another, whatever it may be, this should be our consciousness, that we have no right to lead anyone in an independent way, because we are meant to be representatives of God. Now, if we become proud, I am representative of God, then you miss the whole spirit. What that actually means is through parampara, these people are being entrusted to me to engage them in God's service. So we must be obedient. To be a good master, one has to be a good servant. To be a good leader, one has to be a very, very obedient follower. That is the spiritual principle. Srila Prabhupada was such a glorious leader, but he was also the most glorious follower of his Guru Maharaj. So rather than seeing a person's external charisma, if we want to understand how qualified of a leader is, we should carefully evaluate who they're following, whether they're following the right person, and how obedient and submissive they are to the person that they are following. And a person who is like that is an actual empowered leader. Srila Prabhupada would explain. He said, the only miracle I have performed, the only miracle I have performed is I'm obedient to my Guru Maharaj. I'm simply repeating his words and following his order to me. That is my only miracle. Now, this was actually very astonishing, because at that time everyone was thinking yogis perform miracles, and that's what was attractive about them. That they could levitate and make you levitate. Wouldn't you like to levitate? Sitting in Bhagavatam class, everyone starts going, very fascinating class. What would the common people think? You see several hundred people in Bhagavatam class. People are going levitating and hovering up and down. Or produce ashes, or produce gold, or read people's minds. People want to see these things. This is the test if you're actually spiritual, if you could perform these miracles. But they're not miracles. It's just some knowledge of how to manipulate material energy little better than the common person. Prabhupada said the only miracle, this was his humility, was I simply obeyed my spiritual master. That's all. I just obeyed my spiritual master. That is the only miracle. And what is the power of performing that miracle? Krishna. That you become an instrument, a vessel of divine grace. When we have that submissiveness and obedience to our superiors, if we have right superiors, then the flow of grace of God can actually manifest through us to protect, inspire, and enlighten others. So yes, Maharaj Priyavrat, he made this his priority. He ruled the state in such a wonderful way so that everyone would have every possible facility and all encouragement and direction to go back home, back to Godhead. But to take such a responsibility entails very serious risks. Very serious risks. Because when he was just sitting on the mountain with his Guru Maharaj, what were the risks? Nobody came to that mountain except his Guru Maharaj. So there was no bad association. There was no temptations of Maya. A very holy place. But for the sake of service, he accepted so much risk. Not for himself, but for the welfare of humanity. And ultimately what's best for ourselves is to the extent we please Krishna. If Krishna wants us to help humanity, then that is what's best for ourselves. If Krishna wants us to take risks and undergo tribulations, difficulties, and anxieties, then that is what will purify us best. Because in the path of bhakti, everything depends on how we're pleasing Krishna. So you may have some responsibilities that cause you anxiety. Like in the ashram, there are 4 temple presidents, and they rotate every few months, and none of them like to do it, which is a very healthy sign. It's not that they're preparing for so many months to, so that, they have the most possible power to capitalize. No. They look forward to when they're not the president. But they do it out of obedience, out of discipline. Yes. It's responsibility and headaches and anxieties to some extent. But can you imagine being the king of the world? Shyamananda Prabhu, Sanat Kumar Prabhu, Radha Gopinath Prabhu, Govinda Prabhu. The king of the world. And actually, Priyavrat was just a simple brahmachari like you. Just living in Guru's ashram, just doing his sadhana. And then he was asked, you were asked to be temple presidents, 4, to share the load. Now, how would you like if you were asked to be singularly the king of the world? A lot of anxieties, a lot of pressures, a lot of risks. But he did it. And Prabhupada trained us that we should be willing to take risks in the service of the spiritual master. We should be willing to accept anxieties and even sufferings for the welfare of others. That is the best way to please Krishna. Living in Bombay is full of risks. There's so much Maya in this city. Yes? It's amazing because even people it used to be not like this. But your proud city of Mumbai, the abode of Mumba Devi, is just progressing so rapidly that now people from Western cities come and they can't believe how much Maya is here. Can't believe it. It's even more temptations and Maya here than many Western cities. Yes? And they just want to get out of this place. So, just like when Prabhupada was singing in the Avalon Ballroom, that wonderful program that Shyam Sundar Prabhu arranged for him, and there were all hippies dancing and bands playing and lights flashing on him. Prabhupada was singing kirtan, and afterward he turned to one of his devotees and said, "This is no place for a brahmachari." But yet he brought all the brahmacharis there. And he's sannyasi. So much risk. How many sannyasis are willing to leave, Radha Kund and go to that place? But he did it in obedience to his Guru's order to give the message of Krishna to others. It's very difficult. Very, very difficult. So Prabhupada, he took so many risks, and he asked us to take risks. And risks means temptations, and Bombay is full of it. Not only for brahmacharis, for grihastas as well, for everyone. But if we're willing to utilize the position we're in for the purpose of showing compassion to others, how immensely that will please Guru, how immensely that will please Krishna. So that is King Priyavrat. And actually in the process of his ruling the kingdom, it appears from the pages of Bhagavatam that he actually started becoming very much affected by Maya. He started becoming attached to the sense objects. And he was such an honest person. He didn't try to justify it. He didn't say, "Oh, well, I'm taking this risk, so I'm a Paramhamsa Vaishnava, and who cares if I'm enjoying some sense gratification." No, he was thinking, "I'm just a dancing dog in the hands of my wife and my senses." He was in a very humble position. That's part of how Krishna protected him. He kept him very humble. And ultimately, because he took the risk for the right purpose, with the right state of consciousness, Krishna was there to protect him and even uplift him when he started slipping. But actually, he could hardly wait till he could resign. He just wanted to retire and go back to that mountain. But somehow he had to complete his duty. And his son, Agnidhra, when he grew up to be proper age, Priyavrat Maharaj, "You be king." And he gave him all instructions of how to do it. And Agnidhra was obedient. It describes here in Srimad Bhagavatam, he was very, very obedient to his father. So then Agnidhra, he was the king, but he went to a valley of the Mandara mountain to perform tapasya. Now please try to understand. This is not so conceivable to most people, but it's very conceivable to more people. He performed tapasya to get a wife. Haribo. Because as a king, he needed to have a child. Just like Dasarat Maharaj, he was the ruler of the whole Koshala provinces of the Ayodhya area, but he didn't have a son. It's the duty of every leader not only to correct the wrongs of the past and establish the right principles in the present, but a real leader looks into the future and is always thinking about the future of the world and the future generations. If a leader doesn't have this visionary spirit for the future, then he leaves behind a legacy of chaos and sorrow. So whatever a leader does, a leader has to be thinking, how is this going to affect the future? Next week, next month, next generation, and the generation after that. The way I'm leading, and the policies I'm making, and the facilities I'm creating, how are they going to affect people in the future? So for a king, he knows that he's going to die, he's going to get old. And if he's going to leave a good example, he has to retire and dedicate his life to austerity and self-realization. Every great king of the past did that. So in order to do that properly, I have to produce a son who I'm going to train up in such a way that he could be a better king than me to protect the citizens. So therefore, Agnidhra Maharaj, he wanted to have, it wasn't that he just wanted to have a son, it was his duty to have a son. And to have a good son, he needed a good wife. Hari. So he was performing tapasya to Lord Brahma. Note, he didn't do tapasya for Vishnu for this purpose. Because Vishnu, you should only ask for pure devotional service. He was asking Brahma first, and Brahma knew his intent. So now we come to today's verse, which I'm not going to go into too much detail. And tomorrow's verse is even more details. Brahma, to satisfy Agnidhra's desire and also to help to fulfill his mission, he sends the most best of the Apsaras, dancing girls, Purvacitti. And did it in such a way, I'm not going to go in details because that's for the future Bhagavatam class. By Krishna's grace, I'm giving class in Juhu tomorrow. And I'm sure they're not speaking from this chapter of the Bhagavatam. But we'll see in tomorrow's verse that Agnidhra was absorbed in meditation and austerities, and Lord Brahma had to send the type of Apsara who was going to somehow or other distract him from that, so that he would marry her and have a child to rule the world. And very, very great king became child. So it's all in this case, as Kshatriyas and kings, it was all in the line of service. And Lord Brahma, he understood very clearly what was best for Agnidhra Maharaj, what was best for the world. Is there any questions? Yes, Sridham Saka Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
One in the lecture you mentioned about how clever Maharaj, he was protected because he was very humble, though he was getting entangled in sense gratification, because he was protected. So in spite of that, Krishna actually elevated him in the future. So for the conditioned mind, it's very convenient to think that I am also engaged in self-certification, and in the spirit of humility, I know I am very fallen, but I'll continue doing it. So how does one avoid this trap of thinking in a very humble state that yes, I am fallen and doing self-certification, and accepting that humility is good enough for me? How do we protect ourselves from this trap?
Bhogaishvarya prasaktanam thaya parita chetasam vyavashayatmaka buddhi samadhurvatiyate. That one must be determined. This is quality of Vaishnava. Simultaneously very humble and determined. Dritavrata. Determined to do the right thing. Willing to undergo all difficulties, all embarrassments to do the right thing. That is determination. Prabhupada said if you don't have determination, you're really of no higher consciousness than animal. Determination means we know what's right and we will do what's right, no matter what, however difficult. To accept what is favorable for devotional service and to reject what is unfavorable for devotional service. That is determination. And that determination is what gives excitement in life to a devotee when they are determined. Krishna consciousness becomes actually boring if we're not determined. Yes, because we're just, Maya pushes me this way, all right. Maya, I'm humble, what can I do? No, we have to be determined. Dritavrata, we must be determined. Endeavoring with great determination. Satatam kirtayanto mam yathantaschat hrda. Krishna said, my devotees are always chanting my names and endeavoring with great determination. So determination means we must be enthusiastic. And we must have a very, very strong will to do what's right, despite temptations, despite aversions. But at the same time, we must be very humble. Otherwise, we'll lose the battle in due course of time. Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana paryupashyate. Krishna tells in Gita that I will preserve what you have and carry what you lack if you just, with determination, surrender to me. So we should be very humble, understanding I'm not the doer. But whatever little energy Krishna has given me, with all determination, I must use it to carry out his will. But never take credit. So Priyavrat Maharaj, he found himself, he was slipping. Just what he feared most was happening to him. But it's pretty amazing, very amazing, for somebody in such a big and powerful position as the king of the world to admit his faults, to admit his frailties. But at the same time, he was determined. When he realized his weaknesses, he was determined to rectify it and do the right thing. And he was praying to God for the strength and the help to do it. We have to be determined to do what we can do. And at the same time, with all humility, we must be praying to God and praying to the Vaishnavas and praying to Guru for the blessings to empower us to actually do it. God helps those who help themselves. So this combination of fierce determination, and very gentle humility and tolerance is what are ornaments that makes a Vaishnava very beautiful in the eyes of God and in the eyes of other Vaishnavas and other innocent beings. If we're humble but we don't have determination to do what's right, that is false humility. And if we're determined without humility, then through our determination we'll become more and more and more proud. And the effect that we're actually trying to achieve, to develop, to satisfy Krishna with our devotion, will not take place. So in whatever we do, when we study Prabhupada's books, we should do it with determination to learn. If you're attending the Bhaktivedanta Academy for Culture and Education, I think today is class, yes? You should actually study with determination. If you're asked to dress the deities or make the garlands or clean the temple or distribute books or preach, whatever your service is, whatever that service is, we should do it with determination, fierce determination. Not fierce on others, fierce on yourself. It means determined. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it well. I'm going to put my heart, my soul, my energy, my life into whatever I'm doing. That's determination. We take vows, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, no meat eating, and we're vowing to chant at least 16 rounds. We must perform our vows with determination, fierce determination. But simultaneously, that will not please Krishna unless we're Trinadapi Sunichena Taror Ibasirishna. Amani Namana Dena Kirtaniya Sadari. Unless we're humble like grass, depending on Krishna, praying for shelter, like Priyavraj. He was so powerful, so determined, but still, it was just too much. And he had such a standard. Most people would just, it's all right, a little bit of desire and enjoyment, no problem. I'm a king, what do you expect? But even the slightest specks of desires for enjoyment, he just was so determined. He condemned and was praying to Krishna, I'm so fallen, I'm so degraded, look at my condition, save me. That's why Krishna saved him. He didn't try to justify or rationalize. He was humble and determined. And those are qualities that we must develop. That Krishna will empower us to do wonderful, wonderful things. Does that answer your question? Actually, I didn't even understand your question. I just spoke what I wanted to speak. Perhaps it addressed your question also. Yes, Dwarkadish Prabhu.
We often compare animal life and human life, and we will compare bringing of the class about the pleasure is the same, the activity is the same. Is actually technically speaking the pleasure the same or the consciousness the same? The activity, eating or taking or sleeping, do you address it as same consciousness or same pleasure?
Same consciousness. Usually the animals get better pleasure. But it's the same consciousness. Because in human life there's so many anxieties along with it. It's like we have, if you study the garden downstairs, our Vrindavan garden, there's a bird feeder, which is my department. It's the only department in the temple that I'm directly the authority of. And it's these birds, little sparrows, they love the bird feeder. So many, they're always just coming, tweet, tweet, So they're so happy when they see the bird feed. They're so happy, and they're eating and eating and eating, and they're playing with each other. They're throwing the food on each other. They're really messy. So they're eating, and they're happy. They're not worried about how many calories. They're not worried about cholesterols. They're not worried about having to work and go on, sitting through the traffic of Bombay rush hours to make the money to provide for their food. Yes, they just find it and eat it and they're happy. Yes, no problem. So they're enjoying a lot. We enjoy eating, and so many anxieties are in our mind. Yes, just to get some food. And they're mating. Mating is animal life. It's pretty free spirit. You do it, it feels good, and then you don't worry about it after that, right? We do. Family, and if you want to mate, you have to, if you're responsible, you have to think, how much food I'm going to have to feed this child, am I educating this child and putting through, and then they have to go through the babies are crying and screaming, and then they're crawling around looking for all sorts of dangerous things to play with, and we have to protect them, and then we have to, then they become teenagers, and they're wild and out of our control. Yes? Then we have to get them married, unless they become a brahmachari, which is even more anxiety. So, very difficult. Yes? I hate to speak about these subjects in public. With the animals, they do it, and they just do it. It feels good. Finish. Bus. We have so many anxieties and so many implications and so many complications. Yes? So in many ways, the animals are enjoying better. Because animal life is meant for enjoyment. Human life is meant for self-realization. So when a human being tries to enjoy, because that developed intelligence, which is meant for self-realization, becomes engrossed in this enjoying spirit, it just makes everything so complicated and frustrating. Yes? So it's the consciousness that's the same. As far as the quality of enjoyment, there's really not that much need to compare. But I've never seen animals committing suicide. Right? They just don't do it. It's not that you see a bird just fly to the top of the building and then just... They can do it. Even though they're in pain and everything else, their physical pain and everything, but they don't commit suicide. But humans commit suicide. In fact, statistics say in America, the wealthiest, most powerful and influential nation in the world, practically 1/3 of the teenage population seriously consider suicide before they graduate high school. There you go. And these are people from wealthy families with all sense gratification at their disposal. But do you know how frustrating? You're trying to get the sense gratification. It just doesn't work. What are all the songs and movies about? Frustrated love. Yes. But animals don't have that problem. They don't have romantic affairs. They sing the blues because my woman left me. They just do it and go. No problem. Right? But the human brain has so much, it's meant to find substances of the brain of a human being is meant to realize the absolute truth and philosophy. And when you take all of that energy and just direct it toward enjoying, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, So many complications, so many frustrations, so many anxieties. But basically, it's the same consciousness, simply trying to enjoy the mind and the senses. Simply trying to defend. Yes, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Whether you're running on 4 wheels or running on four legs, consciousness same. Everyone's in anxiety. The dog's running. You've seen dogs running on 4 legs? In Bombay, to give you a more accessible reference, you see rats running on 4 legs. They're running. Haribo. And then you see so many cars on 4 wheels. So much anxiety running on those 4 wheels. So many frustrations. Just the other day, Dwarkadish Prabhu, do you remember? That person, he had a really nice car and a beautiful woman at his side. And Dwarkadish Prabhu asked our car to stop to drop us off. And we took a few seconds to get out of the car. And this person behind us, he had a beautiful car. He had the windows closed, it was air conditioned, he had a stereo system, and he had a beautiful Bollywood type person, lady next to him. I mean, everything was there. And he's in his car. And somehow or other, we stopped our little Toyota, and he's just honking his horn, just kept his hand pressed on the horn. And we don't have horn please behind our car either. Sound horn. Nothing. It was spontaneous. It was a spontaneous expression of his miserable, anxiety-ridden existence. He was just pushing the horn, and you could practically hear the anger of his heart through his horn. Remember? And then he comes up and he's screaming at Dwarkadish. What did he say?
Honking behind you.
What?
I said, I told him, just be a little bit human. Be human. People are getting down in the car. I told him, be a little human. Don't be like an animal. So he responded like that. He said, yes. You think I don't look like a human? You think I'm a donkey in the car?
Qualitatively, yes. He was really in anxiety, miserably anxiety. He had a beautiful, expensive car, a beautiful woman, stereo system playing, air conditioned, and he was miserable. 4 wheels. I don't see rats yelling at each other like that. Huh? So this is what Prabhupada explained. It's the same quality, just sense gratification. Dogs and monkeys screaming at each other, yes? So human beings are honking their horns, and it's just a sophisticated way of being a monkey and a dog and a rat. With all respect. The greatness of a person has to be estimated by one's ability to tolerate provoking situations. That is human life. Tolerance, determination, humility. Therefore, in whatever situation comes upon us, rather than taking shelter of anger and lust and greed and all of these other qualities when things don't go right, we should take shelter of the holy name. Tomorrow's verse, very exciting. Purvacitti has the challenge of somehow or other, on the order of Brahma, to get Agnidhra Maharaj out of his tapasya mode. Yes? So it's a very but I will be at you. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hari, if everyone could be seated one moment. I have special announcement. At this moment, Gauranga Prabhu and Madan Gopal Prabhu will be departing for London, England. The leaders of Bhaktivedanta Manor have asked Radha Gopinath Temple to send representatives to help them in their glorious mission of serving Srila Prabhupada at Prabhupada's European headquarters, Bhaktivedanta Manor. And Gauranga Prabhu will be going for 1 week, and Madan Gopal Prabhu, who has never left India in his whole life, who's coming from a simple Maharashtrian small town, will be going to London. Where he will be preaching on the banks of the River Thames. For one to 3 months, depending on how long he survives. So he's going as representative of all of us and to help the center through preaching and through other wonderful activities. And he's taking a lot of risk, and because he doesn't want to go. It's not like he's one of these people who joins the Hare Krishna movement to go abroad. He doesn't want, but out of obedience and sheer desire just to follow his command, he's going to London along with Gauranga Prabhu. Let us all pray for their successful mission and offer our gratitude and prayers by very loudly, enthusiastically chanting Hari. Thank you very much. Shri Radha Gokulananda is waiting eagerly for your arrival. And Radha Gopinath are feeling separation by your imminent departure. Thank you.